always think of you when spring comes, like it's something in the air at that time. Don't know why.
Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm so excited because I've been meaning to do an updated like wedding or bridal tutorial for a long time. It's been a hot minute since I've done a wedding makeup tutorial, and I feel like there's just been so many new things that I've tried since I filmed my last one that I wanted to do more of an updated one. I wanted to show, my current favorite style when it comes to bridal makeup. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing an all drugstore tutorial. I am going to also do a high-end tutorial too, because I know there's so many people who, when they're getting married, they do want to splurge a little bit on products. But I also know because of last year, especially, a lot of people are doing their own makeup for their weddings. So in that case, I wanted to make sure to have both options for you guys so you can pick and choose, mix and match. But just know that everything that I'm going to use today is tried and true. I've even done flash tests with these. They last beautifully on the skin. So I really did my best to come up with a foolproof routine and products for you guys. I also feel like bridal tutorials sometimes bring in some new faces, so congratulations to anyone who's watching this because you are getting married, maybe you're doing your own makeup, and if you don't know who I am, hi, I'm Allie and I love the drugstore, so just know that this isn't like a courtesy drugstore tutorial. I stand behind all these products just like I do all my high-end products. I feel very familiar with the drugstore, so I feel very confident in my choices. So if you are a bride, just know that about me. I'm obsessed with finding affordable things that perform as well as or outperform my high-end products. So these are all of those things in my opinion. We're just gonna get right into it because this could potentially be a little bit of a longer video. I'm gonna really try to explain in depth some of the steps for you guys, and keep in mind, you do not have to be getting married to do your makeup like this. This would be amazing for any sort of special occasion. Anytime you want your makeup to look really good in photos, you could totally do this as well. But I definitely have like brides in mind when I'm creating this. So let's go ahead and get started. First things first, I'm personally going to start with brows. I like to do this because I like to do my eyes first when I'm doing any sort of special occasion makeup. So I like to make sure that my brows are shaped out the way that I want them to. They might not stay perfect as I do my face makeup, but it gives me a really nice starting point for my eye makeup. So I'm gonna go ahead and I should tell you what I'm using. This is the Milani Precision Brow Pencil in the shade Espresso. This is the best brow pencil that I found at the drugstore. So trust me, I've been through so many. This is amazing. So I'm just gonna fill my brows with this. When it comes to wedding makeup or any sort of special occasion makeup, I feel like extra steps are really important. Like, make sure that you have enough time to really go slowly with some of these steps because that's ultimately going to give you the best results. Also, it's always good to do a trial run beforehand, several times beforehand, because you want to make sure that it wears well on you. So even though I personally stand behind all these products, I'm just one person. My skin type might be different than yours. So if you do try these out, make sure you do a wear test long before your actual wedding day. Take pictures of yourself in the daytime, in the sunlight. Have someone else take pictures of you with flash maybe to really see how things work. I think doing your own wedding makeup is perfect. Like, I did my own wedding makeup, and even though I would do things a little bit differently, I feel like my wedding makeup was very on the natural side, but that's what I really wanted at the time. But there was something really fun about practicing, exactly what I was gonna do. So yeah, if you're planning on doing your own wedding makeup, good for you. It's gonna turn out great. Just again, make sure to practice. That way you have it down when the day actually rolls around. Okay, so I like the shape of my brows. I'm gonna do one more step. I feel like, again, it's the details that really matter when it comes to special occasion makeup. These things are gonna give definition in photos, but of course you wanna look amazing in person too. That's my goal as well. So I'm gonna layer in a little bit of a brow pen. This is optional. This is the NYX Lift and Snatch brow pen in the shade Ash Brown. And I'm just gonna throw a few of these through the brows just to add a little bit of texture. Again, this might not be something that's super obvious in the long run, but I personally pay attention to all the details, and I think they do matter in the end. Keep in mind too, I feel like I have so much to say already, but keep in mind too that this is your wedding day, so if there's anything that I'm doing that you feel like wouldn't suit you, skip it or alter it. You know what I mean? Like, that's the most important on your wedding day, is to look like the best version of yourself and to feel like the best version of yourself. So trust yourself a little bit. I feel like that's one thing when it comes to makeup. Sometimes we always look around for specific answers, and I think it's helpful to find tips and tricks and certain products that will work, especially on such a big day like your wedding day. But at the end of the day, you also have to kind of trust yourself, trust your own instincts, trust what you like for yourself when it comes to your makeup. Ultimately, you know your face better than anybody else, so be sure to keep that in mind too. Like, do what works for you. I'm gonna go ahead and create an eyeshadow base. I didn't have an eyeshadow primer that I personally am super familiar with from the drugstore that I trust, so I'm gonna just use some concealer. I'm gonna be using the same concealer I use on my face. So this is the e.l.f. 16-hour Camo Concealer. So I'm actually gonna mix the two formulas. I'll get into why later, but for the eyelids, I'm gonna do a little more of the original, and I'm putting a little bit of the hydrating one in more for color, if anything. If you have a concealer shade that's a perfect match, that's great. For some reason, I have to mix the two to get the right undertone for me, which is fine. But I'm just gonna take that on a Real Techniques brush. I'm gonna mix it on the back of my hand. In my trial run, because like I said, I did try this out already, I put the concealer directly on the lid, and I'm doing it a little differently this time because I feel like I was reminded that when I do that sometimes with concealer, it's easy to overdo it on the lids. And while I want it to be nice and smooth and kind of canceled out for my eyeshadow, I don't want it to look too overdone or heavy around the eye area. So I just took it straight off the back of my hand, and you'll see how it's blending out seamlessly. I'm kind of making sure to get this inner corner. When I do the eyes first with concealer, I kind of create like a little bit of a mask kind of a thing, like an eye mask here, going kind of in between the brows a bit right there, and really going up toward the brow on the arch, making sure to cancel out discoloration here. You just kind of want things to look pretty uniform all the way across, because ultimately you don't want like a starting and stopping point at all with your makeup. I'm just gonna go over that with a sponge just to pick up any excess product and to make sure that it looks as seamless and natural as possible. Just to really make sure that we've got a nice solid eyeshadow base, I'm going to take a little bit of translucent powder. This one is from number 7. It's the same one I'm going to be using all over the face later, but I'm just going to do a light layer of this all over to set the concealer. This will help you blend your eyeshadows out so much easier than if there's any sort of tackiness left over. That concealer specifically dries down pretty well, but I like to just, again, do the extra steps, play it safe, because I think the results are always better that way. All right, so for eyeshadow, I went through all my palettes and I was really careful about which one I wanted to choose. I ended up picking this one from Colourpop. This is the Going Coconuts eyeshadow palette. I know a lot of people love this for just their everyday makeup. The reason why I picked this is because it's really a solid neutral palette. Like, there's not too many warm tones in here. There's not too many cool tones. To me, it's right in the middle, which is what I personally go for when it comes to a wedding type look. I feel like neutral tones will flatter most people. Obviously, this is where you can use your own judgment. If you're someone who really looks amazing or feels amazing in more warm tones, do that. If you love cool tones, do that. I wanted to do something smack dab in the middle because I feel like this will flatter almost everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with the mid-tone brown in the palette called Culotta. I'm going to go ahead and take this on a fluffy brush. I'm going to tap off the excess. Since we're doing the eyes first, you don't have to worry too much about fallout. That's the nice part about it. And I'm going to start to just kind of create the shape. So my eye look is going to be pretty soft. I want it, again, to just look like myself, but a little bit leveled up, a little bit more glam, but nothing too crazy. So I'm just gonna throw this in the crease, moving it back and forth. Once there's less on the brush, I like to kind of buff it out toward the end and up toward the brow. So again, just really making sure to blend, take your time here, layer in light layers. It's always easier to add more where you want more than it is to remove too much pigment on the eyeshadow. Or with the eyeshadow, I should say. So I'm gonna go ahead and just buff this out on the other eye too. And I feel like another point I should make is when you're getting ready and doing your own makeup, especially for an important occasion, it's good to have like a handheld mirror where you can kind of see things close up. But also make sure you're kind of checking far away too to make sure everything is balanced. So I have a bigger mirror in front of me, and then I use this to really see the detail work. Just taking that out toward the edge again. I think this is a really beautiful transition shade. It's a great way to start any shadow look. I'm going to kind of buff it up toward the brow in this inner portion because it creates that bit more shape, but I'm not taking a lot of shadow. This is just using what's left on the brush, so it's a really soft gradient. It's not like a blob right there, just something to add further definition on the sides of the nose. Okay, next, I'm actually going to take the shade right under it called Shell Yeah. This is like a little bit of a rosy tone brown, I would say. I'm going to tap off the excess, and this is what I'm going to start building up on the outer portion of the eye. I really liked how this color looked on the lid because it's a little warmer than that first color, but it's still not over the top. So this is where it's going to add that slight bit more warmth to the eyes, so there's a bit more life and color. But again, it's not overwhelming, it's not too warm. And I'm just taking that on the outer portion, kind of close to the lash line. And then once there's less on the brush, I do like to kind of buff that in to the crease a little bit. I'm dragging that a little bit further in, keeping it focused in the crease, and keep my eyes straight forward and just let the brush fall into my natural crease. That way they both look as symmetrical as possible. I'm going back into the brush we were using before. I didn't add any more product, but I always love to go back in when I add another color and just sweep lightly over that shade so that it's super diffused and blended. Okay, so as you can see, things are pretty simple so far, and they're honestly gonna stay that way. I wanted to use a little bit of shimmer because for me, I do like that element of glamour, but again, you wanna feel like yourself. So I'm gonna take the middle shade in the palette called Cocoa Crush. This time I'm using my finger. I'm gonna dip that in, and I'm actually gonna lightly spray my finger with a little bit of setting spray. This is the Milani Make It Last setting spray. I'm just gonna do a tiny bit of that, and I'm gonna start patting this onto the eyelid. I find that fingers are so much better than brushes when it comes to shimmer shades for intensity, and then spraying the bit of setting spray instead of just like misting water on it will really help lock that in for as long as possible. I needed it to be a little bit tacky because I did set the entire eyelid with powder earlier. So if I were to have just gone in with only the eyeshadow without spraying it a little bit, there would have been a lot more fallout throughout the night. So just a little quick tip for you. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other eye. I'm gonna make sure to kind of tap off the excess on my finger and spray it kind of at a distance so you don't get too much on. And then lightly start to layer that onto the lid. And I want most of the pigment to be in the inner portion where we didn't apply eyeshadow yet, and then kind of fade it out toward the edge. I absolutely love that eyeshadow shade. I think it's so beautiful. This is where I like to go in with the same brush we were using earlier and just make sure that that crease is super blended, because sometimes when you use your finger you can kind of get shimmer a little higher than where you want it. So I just come in and make sure that that's nice and clean. This next step is optional too. I, again, am just someone who really likes that slight element of glamour. You can totally skip this step if it's not your speed. Also, if you're not into shimmers at all, you could totally use more of a matte shade like this one in the palette called Shredded, and do the same thing, applying it with a brush on the lid in that area, and then just make sure that the edges are blended. You could do an entire matte look if you wanted to. Again, I prefer a little bit of shimmer. So this is optional. I'm gonna take a little bit of a Colourpop Super Shock shadow. This is the shade Ritz. It's a taupey brown with like silver reflex. It's really beautiful. I'm just taking a little bit of that. You can see it on my finger. It's just magical. It just adds a little bit more dimension and glitter, and I'm just gonna take that and gently press a light layer right over top of the shimmer shade for an extra bit of sparkle. Again, this is totally optional. You don't have to. But to me, it's all about the details. And honestly, even if it doesn't make a huge difference, especially in photos far away, like I said, you also want to feel and look really special up close in person. And that's where sometimes these little details, when people are talking to you or seeing you up close, they'll be able to notice those little things. And I don't know, to me, it just adds something extra special. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing, just making sure that that shade didn't get too high up on my face. So if you guys watch my everyday tutorials, you know that I don't really wear eyeliner on a daily basis. I prefer to just kind of go in a little heavier with mascara, like focusing it on the lash line a little bit. But for a wedding day, again, it's about the details. It's about just enhancing those little things because it'll really show up in pictures really well. So I am going to use an eyeliner, but I'm going to use a brown one. You can use black. Again, I know so many people live for eyeliner, so do your eyeliner however you normally do. Use a formula that you trust and rely on. A lot of people love black eyeliner, which would look phenomenal in pictures, obviously, but I'm just kind of showing you what I personally would do, and to me, a brown eyeliner would be enough for my personal taste. So this is the L'Oreal Infallible Longwear Eye Pencil in the shade brown. And with this, I'm just going to go on the very outer portions. I want to create the illusion of a little bit more of a winged out, kind of doe-eyed look. So I'm going to keep the eyeliner on the edge of the eye, and then you'll see later with my lashes, I'll add a little bit of extra length on the outside to really lift and lengthen and elongate the eyes. So again, this is not going to be a statement for me if you're someone who needs a wing liner. I shouldn't say needs, I should say like if you feel amazing or you don't feel like yourself without like a winged liner, do that. I'm not going to do a wing. I'm just going to kind of stop it at the edge, but feel free to wing it out as you normally do if that's something that you're used to. Oh, I kind of accidentally winged it out there. I did, didn't I? Okay, for me, the edge of the eye is good enough. You could take your eyeliner inward a little bit more. I don't know why on my eyes, if I take the eyeliner in too far, it transfers on this inner corner here, and it's just not my personal favorite look. If you have an eyeliner that doesn't do that, a thin line in the inner part looks really nice. Just practice on yourself, see what you like, see what eyeliner shape works best for you, and just do that. So we've got the eyeliner down, but I do want to soften it and set it. So this will help it last longer. I'm going to take the darkest shade in the palette. This is called Nutty. I'm going to take that on an angled brush. I'm actually going to spray this just lightly, like once, because I don't want it to be too liquidy. And I'm just going to start layering this right on top of that L'Oreal liner. Again, not only to soften the edges a bit, but to set it so that it wears all day long. Okay, well, there's a little bit of a wing now, but I don't mind a little wing, so we'll just go with it. But another reason why I love to layer a shadow over top of a pencil liner is because sometimes with a pencil liner, I feel like the line isn't too perfect, but when you just layer a little bit of shadow right on top after, it kind of blurs any imperfections and actually becomes really forgiving. Well, friends, we kind of have a little more of a wing than I anticipated, but that's all right. I actually think it'll look nice once my lashes are on. Okay, so that's it for the lid. Sometimes I'll go back in and kind of drag the transition shade a little bit higher. Of course, we can kind of touch this up and revisit it later after everything else is done. So we're gonna just do a little bit of mascara on the top lashes. I like to do this now on the top lashes because I do have a little bit of shimmer on. So I'm gonna go ahead and go into my Maybelline Lash Sensational mascara. If it were my wedding day, I would go in with a waterproof version of a mascara that I already love, or if you have a favorite waterproof mascara, this is something that you wanna test out, definitely. Test out your mascaras. If you're a crier like me, you'll definitely want waterproof, and you'll want waterproof just for the longevity and to hold curl, which I should also mention, this is where you would wanna curl your lashes if you normally do that. I personally don't. I feel like my lashes are pretty naturally curled. So I'm going to skip the curling and just go straight into mascara. This is not the waterproof version, and I actually have not tried the waterproof version of this formula, so I can't speak to it. But I will say I love this version. So say I was doing my makeup again for my wedding, I feel like I would definitely try out the waterproof version of this one, or I would use the waterproof version of the Lash Paradise. But I feel like this one gives really beautiful length and separation, but also a decent amount of volume. So I'm gonna really kind of layer that up, and I'm making sure to get these inner lashes because I'm gonna be applying individual lashes later, but mostly to the outer corner, so I wanna make sure I still have some definition on the inner portion. Okay, so mascara is on the top lashes. This is where I'm gonna take a makeup wipe and just start to wipe away any fallout under the eyes, being mindful of the edge of the eyeshadow to not wipe that away. Okay, we're gonna move on to base. And I should mention that I did do a really simple skincare routine using products that I am super familiar with. So that's another thing that I feel like could potentially be common if you're doing your own makeup for your wedding. Try not to try anything brand new too close to your wedding day. Like, especially skincare too, because of course you want your skin to look good too. So try to narrow down your routine to stuff that really works for you. Don't do anything too extravagant or too new before your wedding day. I mean, of course, if you're gonna go get a facial or do your own facial, practice that too. Make sure it's something that's gonna really make your skin look and feel amazing. Because I feel like, you know, it's easy, especially for special occasions, the night before you're like, ooh, I wanna do a face mask, but you just don't know how it's gonna react to your skin if you've never tried it before. So just something to keep in mind as I'm dropping everything. Okay, I'm actually gonna go in with this primer first. I have two primers. This is the Neutrogena Prep and Correct Tone Correcting Primer. I really love the formula of this primer because for me personally, it's not mattifying and it's not too hydrating. It's a really nice in-between and it has a little bit of a peach undertone to it. So it's gonna really help to correct the tone of the face before even going into foundation, which I really like because I have some redness on my cheeks, but I don't want to wear tons and tons of foundation where I don't have to. Like, obviously I want good coverage throughout the day, but I don't want to have to layer it too much. So I feel like this primer does a good job at neutralizing everything before foundation, so I actually end up using less foundation. Plus, again, it's a really balancing texture. It's a really beautiful formula. It's not too fancy, it's not too pore filling, but I do feel like it's smoothing. Yeah, it's a tried and true for me. I do, however, want the sides of the face to be really glowy, so I'm gonna add a little bit of the Milani Soft Focus Glow in the shade Nude Glow. I'm just gonna take a tiny bit of this and take it on my fingertips and focus this on the outer portions of the cheeks. I want this to be something that shows through in photos and kind of give me that lit from within glow, but I don't want my T-zone too glowy. Otherwise, I might look sweaty, especially in flash photography. So I'm just focusing this on the outer portions of the face, layering it right on top of the Neutrogena one, and then kind of pressing it into the skin. I'm gonna take a little of what's left and run that underneath the eyes too, because I don't mind a little bit of luminosity shining through the under eye area. I think it's nice if that area looks hydrated and healthy. For foundation, so I have so many foundations that I really love from the drugstore, but this is one that I feel like not only works for me, but I know it works for so many of you guys. So that's why I feel extra confident using this in a wedding tutorial, because I feel like so many people love this foundation and I've used it lots of times on my channel. I know you guys use it a lot. So I'm going to be using the L'Oreal Infallible 24-Hour Fresh Wear Foundation. I'm going to use the shade 420. I'm gonna give this a shake and I'm gonna do about one pump on the back of my hand, and I'm gonna kind of blend it out on the back of my hand first to shear things out a little bit to make sure I don't have too much product on the brush. And then I'm gonna start where I need the most coverage, which is on the cheeks. So I'm gonna put most of the product there. Some people do it from the inside out, but I have the most redness on the outside, so I prefer to have a little less in the T-zone because I feel like that's what makes your skin look like skin and look super natural. Also, blend it down the neck. Pay attention to what your neckline is as well. If you have a more low-cut neckline, make sure that like everything matches. So choose a foundation shade that matches your body. Make sure you're dragging the makeup down your neck and even shearing it out on the chest a little bit if you do have a little more skin showing, so that in pictures it's one uniform color. It doesn't look like you're wearing foundation and then the rest of your body is a completely different color. So I'm just gonna take a bit more of this in the center of the face, and you'll see I'm really trying not to go too overboard because, believe it or not, when it comes to longevity, I've actually found that less is more with foundation. So if you can use less, it's gonna wear even better on your skin. Plus, in person, it'll just look so pretty and natural. All right, I feel like that's pretty evenly distributed. I'm gonna go in with my Real Technique sponge. I'm gonna pick up what's left on the back of my hand, and I'm gonna really spend some time here pressing this into the skin, just to make sure there's no brush lines, there's no excess product anywhere. So I'm just really pressing that in to make it as natural looking as possible. Make sure your sponge is damp. Get it wet before you work with it, and squeeze out all of the excess water until you're left with just a really nice fluffy damp sponge. That will give you the best, most natural results. Okay, this is where I'm gonna kind of assess the situation and take a little bit more foundation. And on any areas where I do want that bit more coverage, I'm just gonna stipple a little more foundation over those areas instead of actually adding an entire new layer of foundation. I'm just gonna kind of spot conceal. But for me in larger areas, I guess, because I have more like hyperpigmentation, so it's not necessarily like one spot, it's kind of a group of discoloration. If you do have a blemish or something, you could definitely spot conceal with foundation or concealer in a minute. But yeah, just make sure to take the time to really even out any areas that you feel like need extra coverage. Oh, also, if you're wearing your hair up, blend your foundation back here too, and even what's left kind of toward the back of your neck too. You could have somebody help you with that too if you can't really see. Just so that everything is even. If you're taking pictures to the side, that there's not like a line of foundation on the side of your neck either. I'm just going over all of that with my sponge one more time. Okay, we're going to revisit concealer. Again, I'm gonna mix two formulas for the color, but also I really do love both of these formulas. This one is a little more on the drying side. This one's obviously more hydrating, but this one's long wearing too. So mixed together, you're still gonna get a really nice long wearing formula. I'm gonna actually mix the two shades on the back of my hand. Again, feel free to just use one color if you have a color that matches you perfectly. I just don't want something too yellow and I don't want something too light or pink, so I'm gonna mix the two. This is the shade Light Ivory in the hydrating formula and Light Beige in the regular. Okay, I'm gonna mix those two together on the back of my hand. I feel like I want a little more of the hydrating formula for the color. All right, I'm gonna take this on the same brush we used earlier. I'm just gonna start gently adding this to the under eye area. When I did my trial run, I went directly in with the applicator under the eyes. And when I did my flash test, it looked really flawless, but I felt like I could use a little less coverage, believe it or not, because I really went in ham with the brightening and the coverage underneath the eyes, but I realized once the flash was on that it was a little too obvious. So I still want it to blend into the rest of my skin tone. So this time I'm just taking it from the back of my hand and then applying it with a brush and blending it out pretty immediately so that I have a little more of like a flawless, seamless finish. That's still bright, but not too bright. And also for fine lines, a really good tip is to just kind of keep your concealer down here a little bit and then use a sponge or a brush to blend up toward the rest of the eye. I also like to leave a blank space between the under eye area and my actual lash line so that I don't pack too much concealer there. Otherwise you can risk creasing a little bit more. So this is also where I like to put a little bit of concealer around the side of my nose to brighten that area. We'll do a little on the chin. I'm gonna dot a bit down the center of the nose and we'll revisit the forehead too. I'm gonna kind of make like an arch right here, just with what's left on the brush. I also am gonna take a bit and go on the sides of the mouth. That'll kind of create a subtle lifted shape. I'm telling you, it's all about the details. And I'm just gonna blend that out using the exact same sponge. See, this is where I'm working around the brows a little bit and I might stamp a little bit of concealer on it. I'm gonna try to avoid it, but I also don't want there to be a distinct line of skin around the brows and where my concealer starts and stops. So if it gets in the brows a little bit, it's not the end of the world. I'm going to revisit the brows at the end, but I do wanna make sure everything looks like it moves in and out of each other. So I'm trying to avoid as many harsh lines as possible. I'm just gonna brush up the brows to try to keep a little bit of that shape. All right, we're gonna set the face with the number 7 translucent, what is it? Hold on, I'm trying to read this upside down. Translucent Perfect Light Loose Powder. This stuff is good. I love that there's a slight pink undertone in this, so it's gonna give a really beautiful brightening effect. I'm just gonna take a little bit of this on a powder brush. Make sure that you go in one more time with your sponge before setting so you don't lock in any creases. And I'm just gonna go ahead and set the under eyes with this. and the whole face really. But I like to press powder into the T-zone because I have combination skin. So that's the area that I want the most mattifying throughout the day. So I'm gonna go ahead and press that on the nose too, around the smile lines. I've always been someone who likes to set my entire face. If you're not used to setting your entire face, I still would recommend using some sort of a powder, even if it's a little bit of a lighter weight powder. This one still does feel lightweight, but when it comes to special occasions and something that you want to wear for a long time, I feel like setting your entire face gives you more control over how much shine comes through, and you can always add the glow in with highlighter and stuff, which I will do. So that's why I kind of prefer to set the entire thing with powder. Then also your other powder products like bronzer will blend out so much better. And yeah, it's just gonna last so much nicer throughout the day. I also am gonna take powder and set any foundation anywhere else on the body. If you have it on the body, take a bit of powder and kind of set that down so it doesn't budge. So now that my face is set, I still like to go in with my sponge really, really lightly because it is still slightly damp. And I'm gonna press the powder into the skin. This makes it last even longer, but it also picks up any excess dustiness from the powder. So if you're afraid of powder looking powdery, this trick will save the day. Okay, so now I'm actually going to apply a bronzer. I kind of do this in a weird order, but for some reason, applying bronzer before finishing the eye look helps me finish the eye look. So I'm gonna take my favorite bronzer from the drugstore. It's the Milani Silky Matte Bronzer in the shade 01 Sunlight. I also love the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer, so either one I would recommend. This one for me personally and my skin tone, I just love the tone and undertone on me, so I'm gonna go ahead and buff this out with a fluffy brush first. This is a bronzer that I have used for special occasions because it looks so good in pictures, in my opinion. Like, it doesn't look like too much and it blends itself out basically. It's really foolproof. I'm obviously going into the hairline too, which that's important. If your hair is up, you want to make sure you're kind of smashing it into the hair a little bit so that there's no stark line between where your hair starts and stops and where your makeup starts and stops. So I'm going to really take my time here just building this up into the hairline a little more than I usually do. It's a good rule of thumb for every step on your wedding days, just to take a little extra time than you think you do. Blending, it'll just make the results that much better. Also make sure to get bronzer kind of on the back of the jaw here, especially if your hair is up. That's gonna really help sculpt your jawline. I'm gonna go underneath the neck too, and down the neck. Again, this is where you can also drag it on the shoulders a little bit. Just try to match your body to your face. So if you feel like there's an area that needs a little more warming up, add some bronzer to the body if you need to. There's also like body makeup for that, or if you have a spray tan, maybe you won't need to. I'm just lightly taking that and kind of going along the sides of the nose. I'm not someone who really contours my nose. Maybe I should, I don't know. I just kind of like a little bit of definition, but I don't go too intense into it. If you're someone who does and you know how, go for it. I am going to put a little under the lip right here, just pinching the brush, because that'll make the lips look poutier in the end. I'm going to take a bit of a smaller brush and the same bronzer and just make sure that this back area is nice and chiseled. And also, something I recently learned, you can kind of follow the line where you're trying to contour your cheeks and go into the ear a little bit. That's something that we shouldn't forget, especially if your ears will be showing. Kind of drag it up and make sure to bronze the ears. Here's another extra step that really counts. Taking the powder brush we were using earlier for the whole face, and I'm just going over everything really lightly, again, to make sure there's no harsh lines. I don't want any possibility of a splotch or a blob or a line anywhere. So taking these extra few steps to make sure you're blending really, really matters. Okay, this is where we are going to finish up the eyes. So I'm actually going to take the same palette. I'm going to start with the same shade that we used on the top lid. This is called Culotta. It's a really beautiful neutral brown. And I'm going to take that shade and go across the entire lower lash line with a smaller fluffy brush. And I'm actually going to keep the lower lash line pretty simple. I think there's something about that, like keeping the focus on the top lid a little bit. I personally love definition on the lower lash line though, so I'm still going to add something to the lower lash line. I am actually going to take, where did it go? A tiny bit of my Infallible eyeliner, and I'm just gonna draw a line on like the outer fourth of the lower lash line super close to the lashes, and before it dries, I'm going to take that angled brush we used earlier. I'm not going to add any product on it, but I'm just going to kind of smudge that out. So that way we have a little definition on the outer corner, so it shapes the eyes. It also kind of lifts the eyes when you connect it to that upper wing that we have, but it's not too over the top. I personally really love a nice bright looking eye, so I'm going to take the Colourpop Creme Gel Liner in the shade Honeydude, and I'm going to line the waterline. This is optional, you don't have to do this, but again, to me it's the subtle details that matter. So I'm just lining the waterline, and this is not a stark white, so if you're nervous about using something in the waterline, this looks a lot more natural than a white liner would. If this is something that's uncomfortable for you, if you don't like how it looks, don't do it. You can skip this step. But I personally really like how it looks. I think it just kind of cleans up that lower lash line. I think it looks really good. Before I apply under eye mascara, I'm going to take the number 7 Lift and Luminate Triple Action Translucent Finishing Powder in the shade Light. It's a pressed powder. This is supposed to be a dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush powder. You guys told me about that, and I would have to agree, it's so beautiful. I'm going to take this and just kind of make sure that this under eye area is lifted and smooth. And this will also help kind of clean up if I got eyeshadow a little too far down. So I'm just going to make sure to do that. And then I'm going to take the same mascara, pretend this is a waterproof formula. Waterproof formulas, especially on the lower lash line, are going to be very important on your wedding day. So I'm going to take this and apply it to the lower lashes. This is also where you can use your own judgment on how much lower lash mascara to use. Because I know some people don't like that much, like they'll just put a tiny bit, which is totally fine. Again, I'm someone who likes a lashy look. So I really like a good defined lower lash line. If you get mascara marks anywhere, just let it dry. We'll buff it off later. So now we're gonna move back to the face and we'll go back to the eyes at the end. I kind of jump around like that. I don't know, it's just my way of doing makeup. I feel comfortable that way. So I'm gonna go ahead and do highlighter next. I like to do highlight before blush because I feel like it really helps make everything look so seamless. You can't tell where the glow starts and stops. It's my favorite. For me, I feel like I would have to use the Essence Pure Nude highlighter if I were getting married and doing my own makeup with drugstore makeup. This is a must for me. The Revlon Skin Lights one is really good if you want a little more of an intense glow. This is going to be a softer lit from within kind of a glow. That's what I like when it comes to a wedding day highlight. But again, use your own judgment. Use your favorites. Use what works for you. I'm going in a C shape around the brow and on the high points of the face. I'm really buffing this into the skin. I'm going to take the tiniest bit and apply that down the center of the nose, just a tiny bit. And Cupid's bow, of course, to lift the lips. And now for blush. I'm a blush person, so I'm going to layer 2 blushes. I tried this out earlier when I did the trial, and it looked so good under flash and upstairs in natural light and also in artificial light, so I'm obsessed with this combo. I'm going to start off with the Burt's Bees blush in the shade Shy Pink. I love a good pink blush for a wedding day. Blush is something that is the first to fade in pictures and also in person, so I want to make sure that I look super healthy and glowy. I'm going to apply this blush a little higher on the cheeks. I'm letting some of the brush bristles hit underneath the eyes slightly right here, and I'm focusing that on the backs of the cheeks too. This is a matte formula, so if you're someone who has quite a bit of texture on the cheeks, I would recommend just using a matte blush. But if you're someone who has a little bit more smoothness in the center of the face, then I would recommend layering the glowy blush next. Also keep in mind your own personal skin type. If you are more oily, maybe you'll want to just stick to a matte blush. If you are more dry and really want that extra boost of glow, then you can add on this next blush that I'm going to show you now. So this is the Milani Baked Powder Blush in the shade 01 Dolce Pink. This looks really intimidating in the pan. It looks like it's going to be kind of chunky, but it's not. It looks beautiful on the skin. And actually one of my favorite makeup artists, Marissa Rose, uses this on her brides. I DM'd her one time and I was like, what blush is that? And she was like, it's always this one. It's the Milani Dolce Pink. I've seen her use Luminoso as well, which I used on my now sister-in-law on her wedding day last year. This looked amazing. So the Milani Baked blushes really do give that lit from within glow. They photograph really beautifully. So I'm going to layer a little bit of this on top of the cheeks. Now I'm going to keep this more in the front, not super close to the areas where I have large pores, like right outside on the apples of the cheeks. but you'll see when I turn, it kind of creates that gorgeous, healthy glow. So I'm gonna layer this up as well. I think it's so pretty. This is where you can also kind of combine the tones. I'm gonna take just what's left on the brush and just lightly sweep that on the forehead a little bit. I know it seems kind of weird to put blush on the forehead, but it just kind of creates this beautiful, like cohesive canvas where there's, again, not like a starting and stopping point, that there's different tones on different areas of your face. That's gonna help things look more natural. I'm gonna put a tiny bit, just what's left on the brush, across the center of my nose, just again for that slight sun-kissed look, because I don't want it to show up like a sunburn in flash photography, but I just want a little bit of color across the nose and a little on the chin. This is where I always like to take my sponge again and just gently press over everything. This is gonna make it look like you used a cream product, but it's gonna obviously have the longevity of a powder because it is a powder. And that's what we're looking for, folks, on our wedding day. We wanna look like it's coming from within, but you need the longevity. Okay, now I'm wiping off any foundation that got on the lips. I forgot to mention earlier, it's really helpful to start off with a lip balm before doing the rest of your makeup. Let that soak in while you do everything else. And then by the time you get to the lips, they should be super prepped, because that's the last thing you want on your wedding day is dry lips, right? Okay, so for lip liner, I'm gonna use the NYX lip pencil in the shade Natural. I tried out a few lip combos and this is the one that was my favorite. So I am going to line and fill in the lips with this color. I feel like I need to sharpen it. There we go, that's a little easier. I feel like lip liner is one of those forgotten steps, and especially on your wedding day, I think it's so important because these are the little details like that really make a difference in pictures and in person, obviously. But you don't want anything to like disappear on camera, including your lip lines. So it's really important to take your time defining your lips, and it can be a very natural looking lip liner like this color. To me, this step is essential, and this will also help your lipstick last longer. So I'm actually filling in the lips with this. You could use a lip liner as your lipstick if you wanted to. I'll show you what I'm gonna be layering. I usually like to overline my lips, but for a bridal look, I feel like it's good to just enhance what you already have, and I actually like a little bit more of a defined Cupid's bow. I think there's something really romantic about that. So I'm kind of doing my lip shape slightly different than what I would do for like a glam look, where I want more of a rounded top lip to give me that pout. For a wedding situation, I just want it to look really classic. Okay, we're gonna use this Maybelline lipstick, which is actually the lipstick that I used on my now sister-in-law for her wedding day. It looked amazing. The color was amazing on her. This is one of my favorite lipsticks. This is Maybelline Rosy Risk. I gave her the one that I used on her and bought another one because I love the color so much. It's just a really beautiful kind of pinky nude color. I'm gonna tap this into the lip liner. I felt like this mixed with that lip liner created the perfect pinky nude lip color. It wasn't too mauvey. It's not too cool toned. It's not too warm toned. To me, it's perfect. So I'm just tapping that in, and then I'm gonna kind of smash my lips together to blend the colors. You can also take your finger and tap the center in to make sure everything is really blended. Isn't that color so pretty? I loved it. For wedding day, I would recommend choosing a lip color that's gonna have a little bit of warmth to it, like a little bit of pink. I mean, I've seen brides that have really beautiful nude lips on, but to me, I feel like for a more classic bridal look, having that hint of pink not only looks really good in person, but on camera, I feel like having that warmth really makes you look super healthy in pictures. So don't be afraid to choose something that's a little more pink and even a little bit deeper than what you would normally think to go for, because you don't want your lips to be washed out too much. So you want to make sure you've got enough definition that it's a pretty deep color to where it's gonna really be visible on the edges. But I mean, like this one, it's not over the top. It's not wearable, which I really love about this color. I'm gonna go ahead and revisit the brows now. I'm gonna take the Milani Precision Brow Pencil again and just make sure I didn't lose any of the shape, because brows frame the face. So it's really important to make sure you spend a little extra time perfecting the shape of your brows in a natural way, of course. That's what I like anyway. For the center of the brow, I'm gonna go back into the brow pen just to make things look a little more piecey in the center of the brows. So before I forget, I am actually gonna take a little bit of my highlight. You can use whatever highlighter you used. I love a good inner corner highlight, so I'm gonna pop this in the inner corner, and I'm gonna really build it up. I do like a bit of a obvious inner corner highlight, but I don't want it to be too obvious to where it distracts from the rest of the eye makeup, so that's why I feel like using whatever highlighter you use works usually. And I'm actually going to take a little bit and drag that underneath the inner portion of that lower lash line, just to brighten that up a bit. And I'm going to put a bit of that underneath the highest point of the brow too, just to lift the brow. Before I forget, I'm also going to take a little bit of the Burt's Bees blush, just on an eyeshadow brush, tap off the excess, and I'm going to add a little bit of this right here to the eyes. I find that that really helps, again, just kind of tie in all the colors, make it look very purposeful, like everything's meant to be. This next step is optional, but I personally think it's a step that will really make a difference. It's a very subtle difference when you use these specific lashes, but I think it's important. I'm going to be using some individual lashes. These are from Ardell. They're from the drugstore. I'm going to use the same lashes in my high-end tutorial. In the trial run, I used these Kiss Trio lashes, which I normally love for, you know, more glamorous looks, but I felt like for me and for my personal taste, like if I'm being honest and trying to actually create a bridal look that I would wear, I felt like they were a little too much for my personal preference. So I'm gonna switch it up. I'm gonna go back to the basics and just use these individuals from Ardell. These are the knot-free naturals. So make sure you look for the knot-free version because that means that they don't have like the little ball at the end that can sometimes be visible, especially in pictures and flash photography. I'm gonna go ahead and go into this. I also tried out a black lash glue, which I've done before. It works really great for more smoky eyes or if you're doing someone else's makeup or if someone's doing your makeup. But if you're doing your own, I figured out in the trial that I would definitely just stick to the clear glue just in case with this eye look, like if the black glue got above the lash line at all, you can really see it. So I'm going to stick to a clear version today. So I'm going to start off with the medium. And again, I want that lifted look. So I'm going to focus the medium on the outer portions. They do make long versions of this, but to me, medium is long enough. Again, this is something where you can play with it. Like practice this on your own, figure out what shape you want to create. That's the nice part about doing individual lashes. I do have a dedicated video that I made a couple years ago on how I apply individual lashes. So if you want to watch that, I will have it linked down below. But I'll show you a couple right now. So I like to look down in a mirror. I've dipped the end of this into the lash glue on my hand, and I look down in a mirror and I put it as close to the lash line as possible, let go gently, and then use my finger to kind of press it down. And this will just make your lashes more full, but in a very, very, very natural way. Keep in mind, your wedding day is supposed to be like just a better version of yourself. So if you're somebody who doesn't really wear bold looks on the eyes at all, a couple coats of mascara might be enough for you to feel like a more defined version of yourself. If you're like me and you do like to wear, you know, a little more makeup on a regular basis, individual lashes are a really great way to kind of elevate that a little bit. So it's going to be slightly different than what you normally do, but again, still natural. This is what all the celebrity makeup artists use on red carpets, by the way. Like these exact lashes. I feel like everyone uses Ardell. Plus, on your wedding day, unless you have a strip lash that you know really suits you, I feel like individual lashes are still the way to go because if you do cry or if the wind blows super hard and your lashes pop off, an individual lash is not going to be as obvious if it goes missing or detaches as an actual strip lash would be. Plus, they're easier to replace. So you definitely would want to make sure to take some lash glue and extra individual lashes with you to do any touch-ups that need to be done throughout the day. So I just did 3 on the outer corner. I'm going to do the same thing on this eye and then we'll come back and add some short little lashes because there's different lengths that I want to use. Okay, so you might still see some glue spots as they dry. Don't be alarmed if you see some white spots, it will dry clear. Something else I wanted to mention as I was doing that, don't pull out the individuals with tweezers, you can mangle them. So try to go in with your fingers if possible, or have someone help you if your nails are too long to grab them because you don't want them to get mangled on the way out. So we're gonna take some short lengths and I'm just gonna continue right next to where I left off. So yeah, doing 3 medium on the edge. I feel like that makes the eyes look really pretty and lifted on the edges. See, and even then there's no guarantee. I just pulled one out with my fingers and I was a little too harsh and I mangled one. So just be gentle. Try to count your lashes too so that they're even on both sides. So far I have 3 mediums and 2 shorts. We're gonna add my 3rd short. Another tip is if you apply the lash and you feel like it's too high up, take the back of your tweezer and just kind of push it down, and that should get it into the lash line. Okay, I think I like that amount, so I'm just gonna go ahead and do 3 more on the other eye. Okay, so for me, I'm gonna stop there. You could continue depending on the shape that you wanna make, depending on your actual eye shape, whatever you feel like flatters you most. They also make long lashes. I think I mentioned that earlier. So if you wanted something even more intense, you could start out with the long ones on the edge and go in with medium and then short more toward the center. Again, I feel like the mediums with the shorts really just help emphasize my natural lash shape, which is what I'm going for. All right, the glue is still drying a little bit on that, but this is where we're gonna step back and assess the situation. A very important assess the situation because it's your wedding day. So I'm gonna go ahead and take a little bit more bronzer and apply it to my forehead. So this is where you wanna look in that far away mirror and just make sure that everything looks the way you want it to, that it's super balanced, that it matches your body. Okay, I'm gonna take what's left on the blush brush and just kind of re-emphasize the apples of the cheeks. Also, for the lips, if you want something that's gonna be a little more on the matte side, you could still do this combination and then kiss the back of your hand a couple of times, or you could blot it on a tissue. There we go. Until there's like not really any markings left. So that was the last one. So that'll essentially kind of just blot off the excess lip product so it's not transferring too badly. However, I feel like if you do have a chance, especially if you're getting pictures done by yourself at all, I feel like you should add a little bit of gloss. So in that case, I'm gonna just add a little bit of this Essence Shine 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 gloss. This is the clear color. I'm not gonna go too crazy. I'm just gonna kind of dab this on the lips and then press it in with my finger. You could obviously go full on if you wanted a major glossy look, but I'm trying to have something kind of in the middle. I do feel like that just makes everything look extra healthy. So maybe just kind of carry a gloss with you. Also make sure to take your lip product with you as well to touch up, and you can kind of go back and forth depending on the time of day, because you might be taking kissing pictures. Maybe you don't want a gloopy gloss for that, but for any other pictures with friends or family, maybe you do want to wear a gloss. So just keep that in mind. Okay. I'm really happy with how everything looks. Last but not least, we're gonna do setting spray, and I'm gonna layer 2 setting sprays. I know that's extra, but it's your wedding day, you might as well. I'm gonna start off with the Morphe Continuous Setting Mist. This is gonna just kind of smooth everything and melt everything. Then I have another one that's gonna really help make your makeup stay. Actually, something that's important to note, you want to avoid your eyes. So I'm gonna use my palette and kind of cover this up and spray the sides of the face. Because if you get your eyes too drenched in setting spray, you not only risk the lash glue coming up, but also you could risk more creasing around the eyes. So I'm just gonna take my fan and dry this off. Once it's almost dry, I take my sponge, I take my mirror, and I gently press that into the entire face. This just really helps make everything look that much more natural. And then I'm gonna take my Milani Make It Last setting spray. This is the peach scented one. I thought I had the original in my drawer, but I don't think I do anymore. So we're gonna use the peach one. I would definitely recommend just the original. You don't want too much fragrance in your products, especially on your wedding day, to avoid any irritation. So same thing, I'm just gonna kind of cover up the eye area. I'm gonna be pretty generous with this. Same thing. Using my fan and then my sponge to set. This is where I take the most important product, in my opinion, the Rimmel Stay Matte Transparent Powder. Yeah, make sure it's in the shade Transparent. This is phenomenal, you guys. I used this on 2 of my sister-in-laws for their wedding day. I'm looking for the powder brush. Where did I put that? And I used it on myself the entire day at the wedding to make sure that my shine was controlled. But this is where I like to go in after setting spray. I take this powder and I just press it into the areas that I really don't want shine, because there's a fine line between glowy and sweaty, and I really don't want to cross that line. So I'm also going to kind of put it in the brows. For some reason I get a little bit dewy in the brow area, so I like to set the brows slightly right here over top of my pores, the chin, the smile lines, sides of the nose, tip of the nose. Take this with you, by the way. Take the Rimmel powder with you. You won't regret it. It holds up in the most insane heat. Both of those weddings were in southern Utah, and it was literally like 90 degrees, and we were outside the entire day with both weddings, and the Rimmel Stay Matte powder was a lifesaver. Last but not least, my friends, we've got to set the brows. We're on the home stretch. If you're still here, thanks for watching. Wow. I know these videos kind of get long, but truly, if you're gonna do your own wedding makeup, I don't want to leave you without any tips. I'm trying to share everything with you, which, by the way, that reminds me, if you are doing your own makeup or if you're getting your hair and makeup done, make sure you're wearing a shirt that's easy to remove. That might be like a no-brainer to some people, but wear something that's like a button down so that you can change into your dress and not have to worry about lifting it over top of your hair and makeup. Oh, I'm using the Milani, the clear brow gel. This is the best brow gel that I've ever found at the drugstore. So I'm gonna brush that up to create a nice natural feathery look. All right, you guys, so that completes this drugstore bridal tutorial. I know it was kind of a lot of steps to get to a pretty natural place, but that's the point. Taking your time to really sculpt, to really take those extra steps for longevity with your makeup, and the results are worth it. I absolutely love how this looks. Just for fun, I will go ahead and insert myself taking a video underneath flash in a completely pitch black dark room so that you can see how the makeup looks under flash in a video, so you can see, you know, that there's no flashback. It really does look so pretty, and if it looks that good in harsh light, it's gonna look really good in softer, more natural light as well. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you found it helpful. Stay tuned for my high-end version. I will obviously be doing a similar aesthetic. I'm gonna try to do something a little bit different, and obviously I'm gonna be using different products, so stay tuned for that if you're looking to splurge a little bit more on your makeup products. But if you're not, trust me, these products are tried and true. They look flawless on camera, they look flawless in person. Whether or not you choose to splurge or go for more of a bargain with a drugstore product for your wedding day, it doesn't matter. I honestly, on my wedding day, I had a good mix between the two, and it turned out great. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. As always, the most important thing is to feel most like yourself. So of course, feel free to tweak any of these tips and tricks, or, you know, this style even, and adjust it to whatever feels the best for you. I'm so extremely happy for anybody who's getting married. Good luck on your wedding day. It's gonna be amazing. And yeah, if you're new here, hi, my name is Allie, and I would love for you to join the family. You can do so by hitting the subscribe button. And if you're already a subscriber, but you wanna be notified on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, click on the bell after you subscribe and you'll get a notification every single time I post. That's it for me today. I hope you guys have an amazing day wherever you are. Congratulations again if you're getting married, and I will see you in my next video. Love you. Bye.